our executive director, Liz Hildebrand, and to say a few words.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for spending a Saturday morning with us. We really appreciate it, and we know you're going to love the presentation today and the conversation. Um, so NAMI Queens Nassau, here we do pre-program support groups almost every day of the week, whether it's virtual or in person throughout our communities, as well as classes, family to family, um, ending the silence presentations. And Janice Garfinkel is going to talk more about our socialization programs. But one thing I did want to just say very quickly is that what brought me to NAMI, Queens Nassau, 13 years ago, was an emergency with my loved one, with one of my children. And, you know, like many, we weren't educated in what happens in a mental health episode or an emergency. Calling around, calling friends. Finally, I got an LSW on the phone, a friend who was a social worker, and she's like, "You got to go to a NAMI family to family class. It'll save your life. It'll save your family." And I'm like, "Okay." Then I had to wait a year or year and a half to get into a class. So the class was amazing. It educates you how to advocate for your child, what all these medications mean, what these um, diagnose these labels that our loved ones are given. And more importantly, it really solidified the fact that I wasn't alone in this brand new journey. So I've been paying that back ever since. So that's what brings me here. And that's really what brings most NAMI volunteers to the table and helping us and become trained leaders is a personal life journey, which I think a lot of the people in our meeting this morning have personal life journeys. And so I just wanted to share mine and reiterate that NAMI is here for you. Thank you. And thank you for joining us.
And Janice, do you want to say a few words, Janice?
Sure. Hi. My name is Janice Garfinkel, and I'm the Vice President of NAMI Queens Nassau, and I'm also Chair of Education. I come from a home where my daughter was diagnosed with schizophrenia. It changed the fabric of our lives. All of a sudden, she couldn't graduate from college. I didn't think she was ever going to have a boyfriend. She was in the hospital. I was devastated. I felt the guilt and I felt isolated from everyone else. And then, just as Liz said, somebody said, go to NAMI. NAMI can help you. And that's what I did. And I went to NAMI and I got the support that I needed. And just a quick little anecdote is that I remember it was Halloween and my daughter just got out of the hospital. And my older daughter had somewhere to go for Halloween, and we had somewhere to go, and she had nowhere to go. And I just remember we went to a meeting at NAMI Queens Nassau, and one of the facilitators said, and we're also having a Halloween party for all our peers. And I just breathed a sigh of relief that now she had somewhere to go. So after all these years and all the support, I've decided to give back and I've started socialization groups for the peers. We have one Monday nights and we have one Friday afternoons. I also have peer support groups where the peers, people who are going through recovery, actually run the groups and support people who need the help. And in addition, we go to different schools in Nassau and Queens, and we give people information and resources of what to look for and how to help someone who is really struggling with their mental health. And again, how to end the stigma for mental health.
Amen.
Yeah.
Oh man, thank you guys, man. You started us off with great transparency and honesty. And also, again, we are here to share and really be honest and open, and also hopefully inspirational and uplifting. That's what we're all about, and that's what this forum talking about our faith and how that has kind of defined how I deal with my uh, diagnosis of bipolar, which I was diagnosed when I was 17 years old. And uh, me being able to navigate through this world and to negotiate different things that have happened in my life. I know that my spirituality, my faith, my support systems has helped me and gotten me through some very challenging times, from hospitalizations to uh, trying to commit suicide to being in a psychiatric prison for assaulting a police officer, dealing with those things, but flipping it and dealing with all of the incredible things that have happened to me, um, where I was, you know, early on, I was a pretty good basketball player and captain of my high school team at Archbishop Malloy, and getting scholarship offers, and winding up going to a Ivy League school and playing ball, and I was a peer counselor, and I studied under a guy named Wayne Dyer. I don't know if you guys know that name, but he was a self-help guru, and really kind of shaped my understanding of my illness, but also just how to help folks. Um, I've been I've worked with President Clinton, Bill Clinton, when he was running for office for the third term, and I was also assigned to a Reverend Jesse Jackson, where I did a lot of his outreach throughout the country. Um, I also was the director of a Boys and Girls Club, and I worked for. I'm old, so I've had a lot of jobs. I also was a youth service coordinator for the Borough of Queens under Helen Marshall. So, saying all of that, I always say that living with a mental health diagnosis is not a death sentence, and it is something that I always say lived with as opposed to suffering from. I know this is part of who I am, and it's a part of what I've had to deal with. And I think successfully dealing with it now, um, being able to give back and talk about my experience, especially to men, Black men in particular, marginalized communities, and just from all over New York City, all over the country. It's been an incredible journey that I've been on since joining NAMI. There was no NAMI when my parents and I was going through that initial phase of my diagnosis, and they didn't know where to turn, and I want my panelists to talk about things, but I'm not going to get into my story that much, other than to say that I want to give back and say that as we all are overcomers, uh, you know. We've all been through things, and we've all been through challenges, and we all, like my palace, will say that they all had a sense of giving back, having gone through things and changes, and also giving back with a sense of purpose, and giving back with the understanding that there is a higher power, there's something greater than ourselves that that help us get through the day. So, having said that, just want to just briefly kind of say a few words about my panelists, and then we'll go into a question. Uh, I met Sir Billy Dorsey a few months ago, having read about him and hearing about the things that he was doing in music and just his story, and was so fascinated. I got a chance to just call him up and say, "Hey, I want to meet you." And we spoke and became fast friends after that. And he will tell you about his story. I'm not going to read any bios. Hopefully, you guys read some of their bios. So I'm not going to get into that, but they will share. And of course, my friend, good friend Lucy and Barrios, Two Feathers, Lucy Two Feathers, and met her years ago in a grief support group, correct? And she was just amazing, speaking her truth and us talking about grief, and she's an incredible poet and spoken word as a lot of other things, and she'll get into that. And of course, I met Pascal, who's on. I met her. She's a recent friend I met a couple of months ago, also, and we were. I was speaking. She was speaking at kind of a Haitian support program, and she just knocked me down. And I said, I got to meet her and talk to her, and she'll also tell you, speak about what she does and who she is. And of course, I always say, what we do may not be who we are, uh, but who we are influences what we do. Having said all that, I've talked enough. I want to introduce my guest. The question that I'm going to start off with for my panel is a question that I always start off with, and that is, what is your why? Like, why do you think that this mental wellness, mental health, mental illness, and spirituality or faith um, coincides? And do you think it's important and what have you? And I'll just kind of leave it open like that, and I'll throw it up there. And anyone who wants to jump in first, if not, I will call on you like a teacher. Okay, I am gonna choose Lucienne, and before we even begin, I asked Lucienne, she is an incredible spoken word artist, and I said, if you want to share one of your poems or spoken words, feel free to do that. And Lucy, I'm going to give you the floor to do whatever you want to do. All right?
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you, John. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I will start with the poem, and then we can get into answering your question, if that's okay.
Yeah.
There was a night under midnight moon and aching sky. I almost surrendered to the dark, when weighted mine hung heavier than hearts, when grief etched despair in my chest, when living felt like dragging body. A mother eclipsed into void and memory, her voice turned from the air I once knew as home, echoing. A fertile womb fell crimson upon waking. I was emptied. Even prayers refused to bloom. I thought of leaving, of folding into shadows, letting earth swallow me whole. No more ache, no more unfinished prose. But then, her voice, not flesh nor touch of skin, but a stone dropped into the well of me. There is still so much I want to do. These words split my darkness like lightning, and in the crack of that storm, a seed planted. One that tasted of sorrow and fire, a seed watered by saltwater psalms. Slowly it stirred, a leaf rocking in breezes speaking, oceans bowing to the moon, carrying her breath. The sacred whispered, life is still holy, even here. Her longing became my root, her thwarted story, my reason to rise. I was not meant to vanish with the weight of my grief, but to carry love like flames in lanterns, to light paths she'd never embark, to taste every sweetness she was denied. So now hear me, live. Live so fully that your breath is echoed in the canyons of mountains. Let no dream die buried in throats. Do not withhold. Do not dim. The sparks you are create fire, wildfires of spirit, wildfires of life. So burn wildly. Burn for all to see. Burn for endless skies like dying stars leave their mark upon your eyes. So live, so that you may never whisper upon ending breaths that often come so suddenly. There is still so much I want to do.
Wow.
Thank
And
you.
that's great. Can you give just a sentence about how that particular piece came about?
Yes. So part of my journey and part of my why, I had dealt with anxiety and depression for most of my life, but it got really really bad right after my mom passed, which came very suddenly. It was all within 6 weeks. She was fine one day and then she just wasn't. And I had a miscarriage shortly after, which is noted like in that poem. And there was a day, and I still remember it, standing there in my kitchen with a kitchen knife and considering, just going through with it. It was hard to wake up and to just be me at that time in my life. Um, and there's something that's always stayed with me because I helped take care of her towards the end of her life. When she turned to me and said that there's still so much she wants to do. And although I couldn't save her from her destiny with that, there was a message in that for me, right? Because I wrote another poem saying, like, my eyes are made of her eyes, my skin is made of her skin, her blood is still flowing beneath its surfaces, that as long as I live, she lives too.
Mhm.
So it became a reason for me to keep going. And, thank God for poetry and
Yeah.
for meditation and all the things that I do. That's the story
Right.
behind that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
So why do you think this is important to kind of talk a little bit about? And you know, I give you the floor for, and then
Yeah.
move
Thank
on.
you.
Uh-huh.
Well, I think for me, my why, what has made, sense for me, spirituality without it being too religious, depending on what people believe. Um, it's really about cultivating a connection to something larger than our thoughts and our feelings. And I think it's important because it becomes an anchor that we can constantly turn to, right? So certain healing modalities like I do, like meditation, right? Like the body is always in the present where the mind can bring us all sorts of places. So it's really about it's a tool that we can turn to as an anchor to keep us rooted when the mind can take us to some very dark places.
Mhm.
And I think it has this quality of being able to sort of take a step back from the emotions and create a different relationship with the emotions. It's not the emotions that are the issue, but our relationship to them starts to shift.
Mm.
And then I think we can meet them from a place rooted in compassion. And I think that's what spirituality does.
Mm. And so tell us what you do. What are some of the things, and then I'll really quickly, and then we'll move on and then get into more stuff. But I'm just curious,
Yeah,
what do you
sure.
do?
So I am an internationally certified meditation guide. I've studied with quite a few Buddhist monks from Nepal, Buddhist masters, and I do sound healing as well, as John has experienced in grief support groups. And I'm also working with cancer patients. That's really one of my main focuses because my mom passed from cancer, and I used a lot of these modalities with her towards the end of her life. I'm a Reiki master and I'm an 8-time published poet.
Mm. Tell me what Reiki is.
So Reiki is basically just energy work, right? So normally when we are energy conductors, right? So when there is a discord in the body, there's like an accumulation of a particular energy in our body, like grief stays in the lungs and the chest,
Mm.
right? So that's why even when we're grieving, we feel that tightness, right? There's a lot of energy coming into this particular side of our body. So as a Reiki master, right, let me back up. So when you think about the fact that everybody has an energy, right? So your heart can send energy out about 9 feet in front of you. So a Reiki master, we bring ourselves into a particular grounded energy that we can then transfer to other people. Everything is always a transfer of energy. Even me speaking to you right now, you're receiving particular energy from me and my voice.
Wow.
And likewise. And we're all doing it all the time. Think about when a kid falls down and we touch their knee or whatever it is, and they feel better, right? We got to kiss the boo-boo, whatever it is. That's actually like a form of Reiki, right? Like human touch and connection is so healing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you. Thank you. We're
You're
gonna
welcome. Thank you.
move on. The next person who I'm going to pick, like the teacher that he picked a person that was hiding in the back somewhere. Uh, uh, and she doesn't hide in the back, but I'm gonna ask Pascal to share a little bit, and we'll get into some other things. Why? Why do you think this is important? Why are you here? Whatever.
Why? The why. There's so many whys.
Uh-huh.
There's so many whys. Life, right? And how we perceive it, how I have evolved to perceive it. When we talk about spirituality, mental wellness, I've also added leadership as part of that conversation. As a Haitian child, born of two Haitian parents, right? Spirituality was something, and I think it's very quite often done in Black families. It is groomed through religion, is kind of monitored through religion right away, right? Spirituality is part of the religion, but then the religion kind of puts some perspective on it, on how to navigate it. But it also robs us of our inner beings in so many ways too, depending on who's in charge and who's delivering the message, and how it is received. So growing up as an Episcopalian, right? Most of Haitians are into Catholicism, right? My parents, Episcopalians. My father also a Mason. So that speaks volumes too in terms of spirituality for those that understand Masonry. And so he led the household that way, very strong, very patriarchal. Um, I am that child that always saw things, that felt things, that said things. So I was made to be quiet a lot of times because I was speaking too much. I was speaking things that weren't meant to be said. And so, because historically, ancestrally, we were taught to stay quiet or else we would be harmed, my parents, those things were instilled in us, right? You stay quiet. I remember my mom saying, girl, they're going to kill you. You got to stay silent. You can't keep and say, no, mom, I'm going to kill them. I'm going to hurt them. They're not going to get me because I'm speaking the truth. I'm not lying. I saw what I saw. So there was so much that was done to keep me silent, even in my home. As well with my father, right? And all of that was to protect. I do understand it came from a good place, but it also caused harm in so many ways. So, going on the outside world and still having the personality in the workforce, no matter where I went, that energy and that spirit followed me because, again, it is who I am. So also encountering the same things in the workplace, in school place, in relationships, right? Why are you saying this? Why are you calling certain things out? And who do you think you are by saying this out loud? And I often would say my spirit just won't allow me to be quiet. So when I learned to understand it and to accept it, and that was through a lot of pain and rejection and harm. I now allow it to lead me and trust it. I wish that as a child I was taught that I do have this gift, and in the religious world we call spirit gift of discernment, right? We have all these languages that we put on, but it's only when it works according to script that doesn't allow folks to feel uncomfortable, right? Whether it's in the church with the priest that's in charge, or whether it's your supervisor at work or the CEO of the organization. You good as long as you stay silent or you stay according to code and not disrupting what's going on. So with that, through a lot of harm, through a lot of rejection, through a lot of self and soul searching, I was able to push past that. And I don't know how. I just know that it was that warrior spirit, something inside of me. One of them ancestors just kept working it up and was able to withstand and fighting through all of these things. We call it spiritual warfare when you're denouncing certain things, when you're calling things out. And when you encounter that, there's a lot that comes for you to break you, to trip you up. So a lot of low self-esteem battling, a lot of anxiety, a lot of emotions that will come out of that as you're pushing through are some of the things that I have encountered. And within these last 5 years of my life has even been more so than ever, you know, from the workplace, from the relationship at home, from family life. Everything was all coming to a head, but it literally was all breaking. There was a cycle that was breaking finally that I was in the midst of and never understood it and knew it because no one would talk to me. I would say, I feel X, Y, and Z. Oh, that's in your head. Just leave that alone. No, that's not meant for you to talk about. You don't dare go and say it. They're going to come and get you. I'm like, who's going to get me for my truth? Like, somebody tell me, because this is not right. And so as things started evolving and erupting around me all at the same time, instead of me going to therapy, I was guided to meet with um, a spiritualist. I don't even know what she was called, but we did a couple of sessions with a African woman who was living in Germany. And at that point, I think that was the best thing that opened up for me so many things generationally that I didn't know that I was battling since day one, since before even in the womb. There were things that she talked to me about that she was able to pull out just from me telling my current story of what was happening and said, this is all a karmic cycle. And bingo, wow, did the light bulb go on? I was carrying my mom's burdens. I was carrying my mom's burdens. And boy, did that light, just shutting that light right there, help me to understand why I was in the midst and what I was in the midst of, right? And just that light alone and that confirmation alone is what helped me to pursue myself basically, and to also um start doing a lot more work focused on working with women that look like me, that are experiencing certain things, especially in the leadership world, because that's where I could tackle, you know, being a leader, being in the upfront world, being out there and being part of a circle that doesn't look like you, not only with your skin color, your culture, but also just your mindset, right? So always being that outsider. And I know I'm not the only one. So there are many others that are out there that need to be freed, that need to hear that affirmation. And so that's my why, right? That is my purpose. So I started this doing trainings on the side, doing coaching on the side, which I've always done. But now I am very much determined to stay focused in that area and really reaching out to individuals, especially Black women and men that are struggling, encountering a lot of these things. People don't talk to us, our families, you know, these are taboo subjects. You know, everything has to be channeled through a certain way. So being that one to step outside the box and have these conversations. So I do trainings in spirituality and leadership. Like, what does that look like? Like, why is it that there has to be one person in charge and everyone has to follow that one person? Right? What does that mean? The spiritual bypass. Oh, God gonna take care of everything. Listen, that's not how it works. Like, can we talk about it a little bit more? And those folks that are walking through church and in real high positions, but when you at work, you mean as hell to your staff, right? You don't even know how to see people as human beings. Let's talk about that stuff in our community. So those are the things. I'm an interrupter. So I am fire when it comes to that. There are things that need to be interrupted. It's time that we are free, that we free ourselves. I feel liberated, and I'm willing to share some of that with others. So
And
that,
I'm gonna interrupt you right now and say, wow, 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 wow. And in terms of uh, just thank you for being transparent, for being open, for being willing to give of yourself and your journey. We're gonna get into some more stuff as we go through this, but wow, that's all I can say. Wow, wow.
I'm
All
sorry. I could
right.
go off. I could go off.
Uh, all right, man. I gotta drink some water after this. Throw some water on my face.
All right,
But
I'm gonna mute my mic.
amen. Well, thank you. I had the pleasure of meeting our next guest via telephone through a NAMI person, Dawn Brown, who people speak of so highly. She's a wonderful person who is in charge of this entire Pathways to Hope, and I'm not saying her title correctly, but anyway, she put me together with a couple of people, and I was introduced to Sir Billy, and was like meeting Lucienne, like meeting you, Pascal, and was floored, and just said, "Ah." Then I started doing research on him. I was like, "Oh my God, more stuff." And I go, "Oh my God." Then talking to him, I said, "Oh my God." And then, of course, he became my new best friend, you know. But Sir Billy, and I said, "Wow, I don't know any black men who are knighted." But anyway, that's another story, right? So, Sir Billy, you're on.
Got it.
Yeah.
First, let me say to Lucienne and to Pascal, thank you, Lucienne, for that beautiful poem. Pascal, you are a firebrand. Both of you guys are powerful, and it's an honor to be on the panel with both of you today. Your question was, what is your why? And for me, my why is, 20 years ago when I was homeless, sleeping on cardboard boxes and eating out of trash cans in Houston, when I'd signed a record deal that had gone awry and they pulled the rug out from under us and I lost everything as a result. And when my pride was too much that I would go back home, it kept me from going back to a safe place. So I found myself in a place of destitution. And my why is the homeless people that I saw when I was on the streets while I was battling crippling depression and suicidal ideation. Many people that were there because they had either undiagnosed or untreated mental illness and their families could no longer care for them. Many people who were there because they could not stand the rigors and the structure of a shelter. So they found themselves on the streets as a result of that. And I was 19 years old in this place with people that were twice my age in many cases, that had wives, that had children, that had husbands, that had children, that had homes, that had had careers, that had had lives that were upended by mental illness. And I saw people that were on the streets that we would look at judgmentally and say that they were drug addicts or they were alcoholics. But in sleeping alongside some of these people and navigating these people on a day-to-day basis while homeless, I saw that many of them had some type of a diagnosis and they were self-medicating.
Mm,
And so for me, my why has always been from that time to this, I wanted to use when I got out of that situation. Drugs and alcohol was never my story. Pride was my drug.
mm,
But I saw so many people there that if they had had the help that NAMI provides, if they had known that those resources were there, they may have been able to salvage their families, to regain some semblance of normalcy, to step back into the lives that mental illness had stolen from them and they didn't know how to get back. And so when God delivered me from that position, we're talking about faith, God spoke to me when I was homeless, and John, you and I have talked about this at length. But I was at a point, Louisiana, being suicidal. There was at the end of my year that I was on the streets. There was a guy that allowed me to come and live inside of his recording studio so that I could get off the streets. But I didn't know he was a drug addict. He would do lean, not lean. He would do wet, which is formaldehyde that you put in cigarettes or in weed or whatever you do. And I've never tried it, but for people that have done it, they get what's called stuck, which means you do it, and then sometimes for 2 to 3 days you're catatonic. Well,
mm,
imagine him having the only key to the recording studio that I was locked inside of in the winter of 2001. And he would go and get high on wet and be stuck and gone for days. And I'm locked inside of this building with no heat, with no clean running water, and with
mm,
no way to escape. If the building had caught on fire with these steel burglar bars, I would have been trapped inside and burned to death.
mm,
So I found myself in that position, and some of my friends that were a part of my life then would come and slide food through the burglar bar. So it was like being incarcerated with no sentence.
mm,
And I reached my wits' end when I was in that place, and I cried out to God, and I said, "Why am I going through this?" There was a pistol in the front desk
mm,
inside of that studio that I was at the point where I was seriously contemplating. Nothing is worse than this.
mm,
Let me just end it. And I cried out to God and I said, why am I going through this? And he spoke back to me in that moment and said, I want you to pay attention to every detail of what you're going through, because one day I'm going to take these trials and make them your testimony. God said, one day you're going to win Stellar Awards, Dove Awards, Grammy Awards. You will have #1 albums, and the world will know your name, but it will be for my glory, not your glory.
Yeah.
I'm sitting in the middle of a recording studio right now with some of those trophies and #1s up on the wall behind me. I've won every award God promised in the order that he spoke them before I knew what some of those awards were. And my brother John mentioned that I've been knighted because of my story, because of the heart that God has given me as a result of my testimony. I've used music and my testimony and the power that God's given me as a result, which he said would be used for his glory, to raise millions of dollars all over the world for the Salvation Army and for United Bible Societies. NAMI has been a part of my journey. I'm a NAMI national ambassador for NAMI and their family to me. But I did a project that raised a bunch of money around the world, and the most money was raised in Spain, and they offered me a knighthood. So he's not joking when he says sir, and I'm not being facetious when I share that. In 2022, His Royal Highness Rafael Andujar Vilches flew over from Spain, had my family there in Las Vegas. I didn't have to go to Spain. They flew over and did an investiture, and even my hometown Shreveport newspaper covered "Hometown Man receives a royal knighthood."
Wow.
And and I understand that, especially being in the position that I'm in now, where I've worked with some of the most famous artists in the world. We've seen millions of dollars come in from the things that we've created. That there are two approaches to life, as we're speaking of a why. There's a self-serving why that allows us to look at everything as benefiting us, and how does that why advance what I'm trying to do, or benefit my family, or advance my own initiatives. But that why is hollow. It's
Mm.
empty, it's barren, and nothing fertile can grow in that space. But I've chosen that my why would be one that's a blessing to people that may not ever know my name. So if I can say or do something or write a song or create some project that, our project with Salvation Army has built a couple hundred homes already for homeless people that are just like I was when I was on the streets eating out of trash cans. Those
Mm.
people might not ever know that my music funded their home.
Mm.
But I know that they're able to give their kids stability. They're able to have a place that they can lay their head that's safer than the places that I was when I was in Fifth Ward in Houston, Texas. And so that's my why, brothers. It's that I want what God has given me the ability to do, and the platform and the testimony that He's given me. I want it to always be something that shines a light back on Him, to say that it's not for my glory, it's for His. And I want it to always be something that is impactful for the lives of the people, whether they know my name or not. And that's it for me.
Oh, that's enough. No, that's incredible, incredible
Thank you,
testimony,
brother.
and incredible, inspiring testimony on your life and what you're doing.
Thank you,
Uh,
brother.
wow, I'm taking notes. I'm writing quotes. I know our executive director is on the chat and receiving word. I know she's typing away about and putting stuff in and on our website, and she'll talk about that later. But thank you, Billy. I appreciate. And one of the themes that I'm hearing from the three of you guys is the uh, the importance of reaching back and helping others. And that is just an incredible way to be. A lot of people don't reach back. They get theirs and they move on, right?
Mhm.
Growing up and going, me having some modicum of success or whatever, and saying, "Oh, I'm not going back to live in my neighborhood" or something like that. I'm moving on, and they don't reach back. But I've always had that sense of, hey, people have done amazing things for me and have really helped me in my journey living with the mental health diagnosis and what have you. And I said, I got to give back. And using NAMI as a vehicle to share and to and other things to give back. So my question is, when you guys were younger, um, and looking and trying to navigate that world of youth, uh, who did you look up to, or who inspired you, or what gave you, what person or something that gave you the impetus to keep going forward, someone that you desire to be like, and as a result, you became that person. So I'll just throw that out there for anybody. Ladies first. How about you, Pascal? What do you think?
You know what comes to mind for me? I have a cousin who's older than me. I think she's about 5 years older than me. And growing up, she was always the independent, successful money, always had cars, always, just was a bad. She was just bad, right? Her bag, she taught me, you wear leather bags, you don't buy nothing less than leather. You gotta know politics, you gotta be well versed. Someone that I looked up to. She can travel, she just got up and moved around. And that cousin of mine is today someone who is going through some mental challenges.
Mm,
And I saw her break down from such a leading boss lady to someone who has lost everything because of having a mental breakdown. And I never understood until I got into this field what that was about. And even within the field, as she was sharing some of her stories, still didn't catch on because I'm part of that family lineage. So I understood what she was saying. The family is out to get her. Like the family is doing certain things. Like at work, being the only Black woman in a leadership position, that people are doing things to sabotage her,
mm,
right? To make sure that she doesn't succeed. And how she's not treated as fair as her other white counterparts. And it was my story also, my story as well. So but for her, she did not have the capacity to withstand
mm,
in ways that I was able to succeed in. And I must say, fast forward, last week I just spent time with her. We generally, are distracted with our worlds, but we're able to meet up again, and she's now going through another cycle where the stress has brought her back to the same state that she once was, which was so sad for me to watch. This is someone that I look up to. This is someone who's inspired me as a young person, my older cousin, right? And to see that everything and almost everything that I have gone through, she has too, right? And to see how her life has ended up versus mine.
mm.
So that is something that sticks with me, and also allows me to see how mental illness definitely impacts us in so many different ways, and generationally, if there are certain things that are not paid attention to, they will continue to happen over and over again.
Wow. Thank you for that. Yeah, it's amazing how, um, we look at folks and we might admire them, and people who don't know. Is she diagnosed? Is there a diagnosis of something?
She's
Whatever.
definitely diagnosed, and that's
Uh,
something that I had helped support her to get, as well
and
as treatment.
And that's what I was, two things. One thing I was getting at was the support that you have given her, and I'm sure some others, and which is really, really key. And those who are watching and listening kind of know about what we're talking about. People that are caregivers, people that are seeing people go through stuff and saying, I have to help and I want to help. And that spirit of helping and reaching back and all that. And also looking up at someone who you admire and sometimes we look at people and say, wow, I want to be that person. I want to be, and you find out that they are struggling and they're doing a lot of things that, may not be what it appears to be, right? You spoke on so many things, and I want to talk some more, but I'm not. I'm going to give my friend Lucianne Two Feathers, a the platform. Go ahead, Lucy.
Thank you. For me, I don't know if it was that I wanted to be like anyone consciously,
Mm,
um, but there's so much that goes back to my mom. My mother, just in the way that she lived and how she showed up for other people. Um, so we'll start, everybody came to my house. Everybody came to my parents' house. My mom was everybody's favorite on both sides of the family, my dad's and her own. Because my mom had this nature about her, about being able to be the environment in which other people could journey through whatever they were journeying through and share it and be safe in doing so. There's no judgment. There was none of that. My mom was a very faithful person too. My mom taught CCD classes at like the local parish. I grew up Catholic, and then like Pascal in a Puerto Rican home, we don't, you know how it is, right? So, but my mother had this, it was like very Christ consciousness, where it was always about making people feel loved exactly as they are. So everybody, it was like a therapy session in the dining room all the time between cousins, aunts, and uncles. My mom's phone was always going off. So it was that example. And I try to be that for other people and just be this within my being, also be the environment in which other people can feel safe to be themselves and in whatever state that they're in, and share that. My mom shared with me, my mom is from Brownsville, Brooklyn, and when she was going to high school there, her best friend was a Black gay man, and he ended up committing suicide because his family didn't accept that he was gay at the time. So my mother told me this story when I was really young, and she just said, I want to be sure that I will never raise anybody who will make anyone ever feel like that, to the point that that's what they choose to do. So compassion was at the root of everything for me growing up, and that's what I wanted to embody. I mean, if you think I'm nice, my mom is even nicer than me. And as I get older, I understand more and more and more about that was her legacy, right? She really left like a legacy of love. And that's what I also want to embody. So it becomes more and more clear, not just when I was younger, but even as I journey through life now, that that is the goal.
Wow, Lucy, you're one of the nicest people I know. So I know that your mother would have been, I would have loved your mom. Um, quick question to you, Lucy. Can you tell us where the two feathers come in?
Yeah, my dad is Caribbean indigenous. We're Taino, and we all have native names. My dad gave me that name because there's duality in all things, right? And we too are of multitudes. So yes, I am incredibly nice, as you know me, John, right? But there's also other poetry I have that is a lot more fiery and has
Oh,
feminine rage in it and everything else. So there's
And,
that duality in me as
and
well.
we will put that stuff in the chat and how to get in touch with you and all that stuff. But then I was just intrigued when and I read your name as Lucian Barrios, Lucian Two Feathers,
Yeah, my dad gave me that name.
and your dad gave you. Okay, cool.
Yes.
Thanks,
Yeah.
thanks, thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Sir Billy,
brother.
in terms of addressing who might have you aspired to be, or who you wanted to be, uh, and who inspires you. Hmm.
Three people. My dad, Apostle Billy Dorsey Sr. My dad served 20 years in the Air Force. My dad is the most compassionate man that you will ever meet. We talk often about how my dad can find grace in people that there is no grace to be found in, and give people beyond second chances, 200 chances. He's just wired that way. And, I'm the oldest of four. And so I've had the most time of my siblings to sit at his feet and just watch how he navigates the world.
Mm.
So for me as a child, if it wasn't for music, I would have joined the military like him. I followed him into ministry. Like my dad is my hero.
Hmm.
Second person that I saw as a very young kid was Quincy Jones.
Mm.
I just was enamored with his gift. I didn't understand at the time what being a producer meant, but I knew that he got to create music with all the cool people, So whoever that was that you admired when I was a kid, it was Michael Jackson. I've got one of his Funko Pops back here behind me. Yeah, I see Lucy's like, yeah, Michael. Quincy Jones was a hero for me. And then as I grew in my own musical, career and understood more of the scope of what he did, there was so much more than just producing music for people. He gave opportunities. Will Smith's Fresh Prince was because of him doing an audition in his living room with all the people from NBC for Will Smith to get that opportunity. The Color Purple, Quincy Jones was integral in that. Vibe magazine was a magazine when I was growing up that contained all the culture. I see Pascal nodding at it. That was a Quincy Jones production. So when I understood as I got older that he did so much more that created opportunities beyond what the music was, that's what has inspired me. And then, of course, I talked about my philanthropy with music. That's We Are the World. Everything I have done, all the money we've raised around the world, I've just followed his footprint. You know, and we've had tremendous success with that. So he's the one hero I wish I had gotten a chance to meet. That he passed away before I got to meet him, but he was my biggest musical hero. And then this one, some of you guys may not have a clue who this is, but his name is Casey Haley from a group called Jodeci. When I was a teenager, Pascal knows what I'm talking about. And I see Lucy nodding too, John. When I was 15 years old, Forever My Lady came out. And for me, growing up singing in the church, like I grew up, you know, it's not as much of a stigma now. People don't care what you sing for the most part. You can sing gospel, sing R&B, sing whatever. But when I was growing up, you had to sing for Jesus, and that was it. Well, Jodeci came out of the church. They were phenomenal and awarded gospel singers that then embarked upon this legendary R&B career that shaped what R&B music is. And so I was 13 when Forever My Lady came out. It was in 1991. And I fell in love with everything about that group, how they dressed, how their style, the way that they wrote songs, the way that they approached adding the gospel soul into the R&B that they then translated to the world. And you know, so for me as a kid, if you knew me, and if anybody sees this that saw me growing up as a teenager, you would be nodding your head right now. I wore the fitted baseball cap with the white socks on it, just like him. I still got leather pants in here now. Leather pants and boots in here now. That's Jodeci's influence. Now I've learned how to make it fit 2020 25, but you know, though he was my biggest hero in terms of just as a singer, somebody that took gospel and was able to branch it out into secular. And I'll share this because I think it's relevant. They always tell you never meet your heroes. But I got to meet Casey when I signed my first record deal before I ended up homeless. I was 18 at the time. I got to meet him and JoJo and Dalvin, and they became mentors to me very early in my career. And he gave me a piece of advice that shaped the course of my career. I was sharing with him. They were at the Budweiser Bud Fest. They were performing here with Frankie Beverly and Maze. God bless Frankie Beverly, who just passed away. Charlie Wilson and the OJs, and you know, it was an incredible bill. I got to go backstage and talk with him and share what we had done and how much he had inspired me. And he said, "I don't care how good you sing, you always give that gift to the Lord." Now, this was the guy that I was willing to follow away from gospel music into R&B, telling me, "I don't care how good you sing. Yeah, y'all got it." My brother and I sang for him. He's like, "Y'all got it. Don't ever give that gift to anybody other than the Lord." And that kept me because he was my hero in that sense that I would have followed in that path. And when he had the ability and the authority in my life, because I had given him that, to speak something that would have taken me away from God's purpose for me. Instead, he spoke to God's purpose for me. And everything I've done as a result with me singing has been something that would give God glory. And I try to honor God in everything that I do. And in large part, it's because of his advice. So my dad, Quincy Jones, Casey from Jodeci, those would be the people that I wanted to be as a kid.
Forever, my lady, it's like a
Come
dream.
on,
Anyway,
John.
I was going to ask you to hum a few bars, but
Nah, don't get
I'm
me to
going to
do
put
that
you on the
this morning.
spot. All right, because Casey was incredible, and I'm sure
Yes.
people who are listening and will listen to this will say, "Oh yeah, I saw Pascal in her head doing her thing, and Lucy, you know." So, yeah, you threw out some names, really, really, people have big followings and people who, are influences, right? And I think that on our talk yesterday, we had a rabbi on who spoke about his um, his position as someone who people look up to, and people who and his sense of knowing that he is an influencer and how it's important to model a certain behavior. So my question to you guys is uh, do you how do you feel as influencers as you all are, you know, how do you take on that mantle? How does it look to you? Do you feel that did you need to be a certain way in terms of having people look at you, and what is your take on that, Lucy? What do you think?
Um, you know, it's easy to get caught in how people see you, but I just think that's an ego thing.
Mm,
I think it's just, you know, if I'm saying I want to show up and be the environment, it's really just about being that. Um, you know, because for me, at least with what I do, my life is more of an invitation for others.
mm,
Right? So that's what I am. It's not so much about how other people are seeing me, because I think the right people will see that in me.
mm,
The people that need me will see that, right? And they'll be invited, I think, to soften the walls that they have up. It's really
mm,
just about, like, again, it all comes back to compassion and being rooted in heart, right? Like, not seeing with the eyes of the mind, but seeing each other with the eyes of the heart.
So let me ask you a question then.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
someone like Charles Barkley, right? Great
Mhm.
basketball player,
Mhm.
influencer, everybody's, and he says, I am not a role model. I don't want people to look at my life and emulate it and unfortunately or fortunately, people
Mhm.
do. And so when I heard that, when he said that, I am not a role model, and he has done some crazy stuff, and but unfortunately, kids are looking at that, and
Yeah.
they're being influenced. So, will you speak to that?
I mean, well, we're all going to be inspirations for each other, right? That's part of the nature of being a human being. I think if I'm an example of anything, it's certainly just being human. I'm not perfect. I've been through, you know, abusive relationships in the past and different things. I've gone through my own stories, and anybody who comes to me and thinks I'm this, I'm like, listen, I'll share my stuff with you because I hope that you don't make the same choices that I make.
Mm,
Right.
yeah,
Right. But
yeah,
again, it's just about being human. I'm not perfect. I would never get up here, and even being called an influencer feels silly
weird.
or strange.
Right. Yeah. And when I say
You know?
influencer, I
Yeah.
mean you know, people are hearing your
Mhm.
poetry and
Mhm.
seeing your writings and they're taking inspiration from you
Yeah.
and myself in a lot of ways, you know, people
Yeah.
looking at me in different ways and although I show up as who I am, but I do kind of I'm a little just being careful at times about you know a little kid. Like I might be hanging out with my boys and I might use certain language, but when I'm
Oh,
around certain, you know what I mean. So when I'm
yeah,
around
of
something,
course.
I'm not, you know, because I know that.
I think that's just manners, though.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
well,
think,
in that respect, yeah.
manners, yeah.
But I think that we are, and that's why I asked the question about who
Yeah.
you guys looked up to and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
question, Sir Billy, you know, how you show up in spaces, um, is that a consideration for you, or is it like, hey, you take me as I am. I know I'm not perfect and stuff like that. And you know, my thing is that and just real quickly, you know, it's kind of like you know I'm very spiritual and I believe in God, but I don't wear that on my sleeve necessarily. But I
Yeah.
think that you know how I am, and if people like the Kool-Aid, like my Kool-Aid, and they want to ask me about what I believe in and who I am, then I'll tell them. And but I would want my life, and as I'm sure all of you do, to be an example of how
Yeah.
I show up in spaces.
Yeah. I would say in my journey, one of the people that gave me the first national and international platform was Pastor Joel Osteen.
Mm,
One of the senior directors at the church had a dream about me. God showed him in the vision that Lakewood was supposed to help launch my ministry. This was when we were nominated for our first Grammy, so it was in 2012. And when I got to meet Pastor Joel and got to go to Lakewood, I was teaching Bible study at the public library here. I was bringing food for the homeless people. Again, same focus on ministry, but this was before any major success. I think we'd had a number one album, but that was it. The album that was nominated for a Grammy had hit number one. And so when Pastor Joel took me under his wing and I started leading, for years I led worship at Lakewood and outreach worship, and I was the person that would go into the inner city for Lakewood Church, and so when we would take turkeys to the families for Thanksgiving, or when we'd give kids Christmas presents, and when we'd launch a project where we'd give away books to schools, that was my responsibility with Lakewood for years, until my own career kind of took me where I couldn't be there consistently like that anymore. I share that to say, because I was in his house and because I was covered under his mantle as a minister, I would dress like him. I would wear suits. I would, I probably started talking a little bit like Pastor Joe without even trying to. I had a little country twang that would slide on in every now and again, you know. And I remember him one time, we were talking about something that I had going on, and I showed him some pictures that I'd taken for something. And I remember him pulling me to the side and saying, "Billy, you don't have to dress like me or try to be like me. You're here because you're going to reach people being you that I could never reach." And I needed to hear that advice, because I always assumed I had never been in a position where I had global level leadership, people that were globally known, that had said, "You're the guy, come to, get on me." Pastor Joe did TV interviews with me. He did everything he could to help launch my ministry, because God showed them that they were going to help me. So those are all out there. If you look at them, in the first ones, I'm probably wearing a suit, and the latter ones, I'm probably wearing shades in church, because that was who again, Jodeci, it's authentically who I was at the time. And him giving me that advice was crucial to me, because there have been a world of people that I've reached. There's been doors that I've walked in that Pastor Joel never walked in, just because of what he does. He's in that lane, and I'm called to be in this one. So I share that to say, one, early on in my career, I was overly mindful of how everything was presented, because I wanted to be in alignment with the people that I fell under, or the people that I looked to for leadership. And two, I didn't want to be a negative reflection of the grace that had been given to me, and the platforms and the support that had been given to me. Now I'm just me. I represent everyone that has brought me in. I try to make them proud with how I do things and what I do. But I'm going to come in there and be who I am. I'm going to speak the way that I speak. I'm going to bring whatever God's given me to bring to the table, because I finally understand that that was enough all along.
Amen.
It's what made them care enough to have me in the door in the first place. I was too young and inexperienced enough to understand that. Now, with the benefit of wisdom, as Lucianne mentioned, now as I've gotten a little older, I just understand that there are people that I'm going to naturally connect with just by being me, and those are my people. And so, yeah, I'm respectful always. You talk about manners, always respectful, but I'm me when I walk in any space. John, think about it. Our conversations we've had on the phone. Have I ever put on any semblance of pretense
Yeah, a
or,
little bit. No, not at
oh,
all.
get out of here.
No, but I tell you, growing up and and relating to different folks,
Yeah.
from the intellectual guys that are in school, and I
Yep.
grew up in a high school that was all white, and just dealing with that world, and then going back to my home, and wasn't the hood, but was all black, and then going to my spiritual world with my Christian friends, and then going to and experiencing different, and I felt fragmented, because I was able to kind of negotiate and deal with all these folks, and I remember saying to myself, who am I? Like, what, I'm this way with this person, but then I realized that I was me, and all of those parts of me was me. And it wasn't like I was genuine in all aspects of who I was, but it took a while. And as we get older, I guess as kids learn, that they learn that they do code switch, they do different things, but that's all part of who they are. But part of my psychosis, was that I got depressed, because I'm like, who am I? What am I doing? I don't know who I am. you know, and the depression sets in and stuff like that. And I just want to jump off the ledge because I don't know what I'm doing. So, but having the realization that I am all those things, but I'm me, and I prayerfully I come across as someone who's sincere and in all aspects wherever I go. Pascal, you know, you being when I met you, and you know we were around all these Haitian folks, and I heard you speak. And do you ever feel that you are representing uh, in your walk Haitian people, or do you feel an obligation or anything like that?
Well, I want to say that I am who I am, regardless of wherever I am.
Hmm.
I had to learn to accept me. That is one of the things that helped me. I always have a hard time like trying to change or shift just because that's just too much mind work. That's too much mental gymnastics. So I've learned, and especially growing up Haitian, right? Immigrant parents, Black immigrant parents, right? And being Black in only white spaces. So I had the in church, you're supposed to act a certain way. In the home, as a female, you're supposed to act a certain way. In the job, in the professional community, you're supposed to act. So I've always gone against every one of them. I came out fighting, y'all. I don't know what was going on. I was just meant to be here. I just came out like ready. So there was a constant, like me challenging for some reason all along since a child. And I just eventually one day said, this is who I am. And I just need to accept who I am, accept what comes with it. Sometimes I laugh like, wow, I said all those things and I was the only Black person in that space. And I teach at Columbia University School of Social Work. I teach at Fordham University School of Social Work. So two Ivy League schools, right? I teach the DSM. I teach assessment and diagnosis. I teach all, and I'm not teaching a cultural competency course. I'm teaching things that folks that look like me don't necessarily teach. So to get the respect, folks had a hard time, but I continuously remain authentically Pascal in every space. And I am so shocked by every semester having white students in particular register for my class where it's closed out and no one else can get in because of me being my authentic self. And I do believe in that and not changing that. So I've learned to accept Pascal.
Yeah. Pascal, I want to take your class. I want to be in your class, please. Call on me. Call me. Great stuff. Great stuff. I know that, and of course, we're gonna go another 15 minutes or so, 20 minutes, and then I kind of want to open it up in the chat a little bit. I know people are talking. Elaine, I am gonna ask Sir Billy she says, make Sir Billy sing. Make her, hey, I can't do that. Come on, he gets paid for this for singing, you know. But a question I have is if if you had a world, if you could create a world where uh, mental wellness, mental illness, mental is accepted, and what would that world look like in terms of politically, socially? Like, how would you like people that are living with mental illness to be accepted? Kind of an abstract question, but play with it a little bit, Lucy. See, talk about it a little bit, Lucy.
Sure, it's so funny because the last like 3 months I was in this workshop with like 38 other people, and one of the things we had to do was create a vision for the world, right? And mine was, which I have right in front of me, it says, my vision for the world is where healing is not a privilege but a birthright. Compassion is a way of life, and financial freedom is accessible to all. So one of the things, particularly with mental health, is accessibility, right? A lot of times people don't have access to these things, one, because they either don't have the information or they don't have the resources to access it, which is part of why I did the grief support group for free in Queensbridge for a couple of years. So that removing one more of those barriers, and that's currently what I'm working on now, doing with meditation and sound healing for veterans, for cancer patients and caregivers, for those with chronic illnesses and mental health. So I'm actively trying to create that world where I'm going to bring these healing modalities that I personally do into these spaces at either for free or low cost, right? And that comes from really, again, compassion is like my number one thing. That is my foundation, because through compassion for self, we're able to feel more compassion for others. And that's really what's needed in order for us to really come together and make sure that like everybody's good. It's about accessibility and less about like who gets to have accessibility.
Wow.
Mhm.
Now, we didn't talk about that question, and you had it all queued up already. I didn't even, I just thought about that, but that's great. I think
Yeah.
one of the great things about NAMI and
Mhm.
why I am so dedicated to what they do is that everything is free, you know, and so the accessibility and it takes away a lot of things that people uh, a hindrance, right? And so that's a great thing, and we could talk about more funding and all that kind of stuff, but the whole idea is trying to be more accessible to folks. Some other things that they got to work on, but I think that and Liz could talk about that and this, but the fact that we're open to everyone. So that's really good, and thank you for that. Pascal, would the world have a Haitian president or what?
That would stay and be at peace so the country and folk I could go back and visit and not be worried. Um, I would say believing in people's stories. When
Mm,
somebody tells you their story, believe them.
mm,
Willing to understand the meaning behind someone's behavior so that we don't personalize and we can
mm,
really see people for who they are and accept them as such. And lastly, understanding that things are not personal, it's vibrational. So
mm,
once you get that, you will no longer take on someone's story and make it become yours or shut them out of telling theirs.
mm,
So I think that a lot of illness comes from someone not hearing and being willing to understand and meet the person where they're at. So if we
mm,
can have a world where folks can be still and listen, and really respect someone's story. And then a world where folks are ready to shed what no longer serves them so that
mm,
we can walk lightly and towards the light.
mm.
That's what I envision. That's a magical dream for me. I don't know how long it's going to take, and I pray to see it in my lifetime, at least for folks around.
Amen, amen. So I was I've been writing this book for like 30 years, but and part of it is just going through different steps, going through my beginnings of the name of the book is going to be I Thought You Were Going to Be Somebody, a Black Man's Guide to Living with Bipolar, right? And so I'm taking different five different aspects of my life, and from talking about how it all began, things that were happening before I was diagnosed and what happened afterwards, and then the second part of the book is about acceptance, right? Accepting who you are, what's happening, and third is about talking about treatment, medication, and the fourth part of the book is how you're coping, how I'm coping with things, right? And the fifth part is just talking about successes I've had and different things like that. And so really, so if you were writing a book about your life, what would be the main theme, or how is in terms of because I'm ready to read your book now. I'm ready to read it. Just reading your bio was enough. But what would your book be entitled, and how would you characterize it?
We actually had meetings in Atlanta last week about me writing the book of my life
Wow.
story.
Okay.
So I can tell you exactly what it will be called. It's called Marathon. The book will be called Marathon. And the heart behind that is, life is a race. We all have to run in our own lane. And a marathon is not about how fast you can run. It's about how well you can pace yourself. It's about, what happens when you hit the wall. How do you push through it? It's about, you're looking at everybody at the starting line, and we actually don't all start the same because we don't all have all the same tools when we begin. But the finish line is a fixed point, and in life, for all of us, the finish line is a fixed point. It's the end of life, at least in that regard. But it's between the dash. It's between the numbers. It's on our tombstone one day it'll say that I was born here and I ended here. Those are fixed points, but it's what I do in the dash that matters. And to me, the marathon is the dash. And so my book will be about my journey. It'll be about the influence of my parents, my life story, music, and the role that it's played in my life. But more importantly, the challenges that I face, including with mental health, and how God blessed me to not only overcome those, but to become someone that can help to lead other people to navigate through that in a healing and healthy way. I'm excited to be able to share it. So I'll make sure you get a copy. And I need you to finish that 30-year gestating book, brother. We need that book. We laughing, but you have so much wisdom and insight and experience that those of us that have gotten to know you outside of this forum, we get to share in that. The world needs that too. So please, we talking about my book. Make sure your book gets finished.
Well, I thank you. I think that it's so uplifting to hear you guys. Yeah, yeah. So it's kind of like a shot in the arm for me. I kind of like I want to go out now. I want to go run and jump and swim and all that stuff. And so Lucy, I want to ask you about um, some of your coping mechanisms. And I know one of the things you do is sound baths, which I think I've participated in. Tell us about how you cope with the struggles of life.
So I have a meditation practice that I follow without fail. It is every day. So it's almost like ritual, right? Which I think helps root us, into the present, having ritual. And meditation is that for me, which is part of why I provide it for other people. So meditation for sure. Sound healing, if meditation feels strange for you, that's actually where I started. The music, especially in our communities, is so important and familiar to us, which is also why I bring it into these spaces. So I use sound healing because it balances the left and right side of the brain. It balances the heart rate, the respiratory rate. It reduces cortisol in the body, so you sleep better. Rest is also a part of, recovery, whether it's emotional, mental, and even physical, right? So for me, meditating every day, as soon as I wake up, before you pick up that phone or even get out of bed, I'm still in the covers and it's meditation time right away. And then before falling asleep. I also like walks are really important. That can be moving meditation. If stillness is a little bit uncomfortable, there are times where that might be uncomfortable even for me, somebody who's used to stillness. So movement, whatever that looks like, right? It could be yoga one day, walking another one, Pilates the next day, whatever. I need to move my body, and meditation and not making excuses not to do it. Right? Like holding myself accountable to the practice, because if I miss a day, or if you miss a day, you're going to feel it. Right? And of course, poetry has been my best friend since I'm like 9 years old. It's helped me navigate everything I've been through in life. That was really the first tool that I had. And then I was introduced to breath work when I was 17 by a counselor, when I was having severe anxiety to the point where it was giving me intestinal issues and all this stuff. So I was introduced to breath work then. And then, yeah, meditation. I'm telling you, it works. Try it 5 minutes a
Isn't
day.
it? I
Yeah.
yeah,
And sound healing, play that stuff. They got YouTube, play it.
Yeah,
It really works. Yeah.
back in the day when I was younger, I got into TM, transcendental meditation,
Mm-hmm.
and that was great. Being able to have my mantra and all those things help me. But for
Yeah, but
part of
also
my
cry if you need to, right? Like it's also not
oh,
about not
absolutely,
dealing with the feeling, right? There are
yes,
things where especially right after I had the miscarriage, and usually in the grief process, I have found that the second year after the loss of someone is actually harder than the first. And both of those things happened at the same time for me. And it was really sound healing and allowing myself to cry and breathe at the same time, and not, sitting with the emotion. Like if that emotion, I ask myself when I'm dealing with stuff like, okay, if that emotion had a voice, what would it tell me?
mm,
Like, what would it say? So I sit and I really try to, I spoke about this earlier about shifting my relationship, or even building a relationship with the emotion so that I can really sit with it
mm,
instead of trying to avoid it or building up a resistance to it to try to be the strong one, or whatever it is, or reach for anger because that's easier, right? There's pain underneath the anger,
mhm,
right? Everything
mm,
is fear, pain, or love.
mm.
So
This,
sit with the emotion, like and talk about it, right?
wow,
Talk about it. And if you can't
mm,
talk about it with somebody right away, if you don't have that, write about it,
mm.
right?
Oh,
Write about it. It
good
has
stuff.
saved me.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm gonna get back to coping and stuff like that. But one of the programs, initiatives that NAMI has sharing hope, right? Sharing and going into marginalized communities and opening up the conversation about mental health, right? We don't talk about it. We used to, put Uncle Charlie up in the attic when people come over or something like that. But what I find is when you give people a forum and a safe space to talk about things, and have them feel comfortable in sharing. And my mother used to say, "Don't hide your scars," right? And when you share, then other people. And I sometimes am amazed that I just sit in the space of people who don't know each other necessarily, but walk out of that sharing hope program, that sharing with a common bond. And after our three segments, they said they take on it takes on life of their own because they're able to share. But about coping, I'm fortunate to live on the beach, and sunrise and sunsets, walking on the boardwalk. It was beautiful the last couple of days because of the waves. I don't know who around the country. We've been experiencing some incredible 15 feet waves, and I just sit out there and I'm amazed at God, and I see beauty in nature. And my friends always tease me, "Oh, here goes John walking through the woods again." But that's needed, and that's non-negotiable for me in terms of dealing with my psychosis, my things that I deal with, and just everybody. I think has to find a place, whether it be listening to delphonics and stylistic music from back in the day, or whatever it is. Sir Billy, what do you do?
What I do now is I guard my mental space fiercely.
Mm,
I navigate challenges as they need to be navigated. We don't run from conflict, but anything that's unnecessary, anything that is overly negative, anything um, that is a leech for my peace, I don't allow it in my space at all.
mm,
So, and the people that know me have learned that's been a shift that I've made over the last few years. I'll share because as Lucy shared hers, my wife and our daughter was born a micro preemie during the pandemic. She was born 1 pound 3 ounces. She was born, she's supposed to be born in June. She came in February. She's
mm,
here. She's 4 years old. She's in there beating up cabinets in the other room now. But our hearts and our ability to navigate unnecessary things when we needed to focus all of our energy on making sure she was okay and came home from the NICU okay and providing a safe space for her. It completely shifted my perspective on how I guardrail around my mental peace. I'm a by nature, I am the person that I jump in to try to solve problems and try to help where I can. And I understand God's given me a tremendous capacity to do that. So I'm usually the, what's wrong? What do you need? Let me figure out how I can help. Let me make calls. I don't do that as much now. I delegate that a lot more, because when people feel that you are the solution to their problems, they don't work as hard to find solutions for themselves. There's that. And people will place all of their burdens on you with no consideration for your capacity to carry them. And for me to be mentally at peace, not battling with depression, not going through the not able to sleep, not dealing with anxiety, it has become vital for me to put guardrails around my mental peace, mental health. So that's been the biggest thing. I will love you from a distance.
Okay.
And if I can help, I legitimately will, but I'm not going to give all of my emotional vulnerability and capacity to things that are not also pouring back into me.
Okay.
And I've just had to make that shift, because I've got a little one here that needs as much of my attention as she could possibly have to meet all her milestones and get everywhere she needs to be. And she deserves it. She was born with the right to 100% of that capacity. No one else really has that. And so I've just navigated things differently. And
Good.
I'd caution everybody that's listening, take a look at the things that do a plus minus on energy. We talked about that at the beginning of the call. The people that when they call you, when you get off the phone with them, do you feel uplifted or do you feel drained? The people that when they tell you whatever if you ask them how was their day and you feel like you can't wait to get off the phone, those people may legitimately need you, but compartmentalize how much of yourself, your emotional and mental, stability you can give to those people that need you legitimately. Beyond that, why bring yourself down with things that don't add value to you? And it's not a selfish conceit. I can't give what I'm supposed to give if I don't have it. And I think we make the mistake a lot of times when we are givers of giving all we have and then wondering why we're empty. No, I need to make sure that I'm also surrounding myself with things, people, places, and my own practices that replenish me. And so I've just put guardrails around my mental peace. That's it for me.
Thanks for that. Pascal, I know that when we get on the plane, what they say, put your life jacket on first, and then you can help others. What's your life jacket look like, Pascal?
Speaking of planes, I love to travel.
Okay.
I love to travel, and to just be in different spaces. Everything that's been said so far, Lucianne, Sir Billy, John, like the meditation, the guarding my spirit, right? Protecting my spirit, the walks away from everyone. Like I love the walks in nature. I love being around water. I'm a little scared. I don't know how to swim, but I could just be ashore, and just walk around just to hear the waves. That's all I need. So I also, in talking about grieving and allowing myself to heal, right? I lost my mother at 19 years old due to breast cancer. I must say that I did not realize that I never grieved my mother until about 3 years ago. I will be 50 next Sunday.
You look
So
good,
that
sister.
Thank you. So from 19 to my late 40s, right? I held on with once my mom died, I came in survival mode. Mom never showed me suffering or it was okay. She just suffered in her last stages. So for me, I took on that strong. Like I can't let no one see me fail. So allowing myself to feel the pain that I constantly ran from has been part of my wellness so that I can never feel it again the same way. So it can process whatever it needs to process and cut right there so that my daughters no longer have to carry the generational burdens that I carried from my mom and her mom and everything else. So breaking that pattern has been part of my wellness and my mental stability. And also realizing that not everything is a fight. I said I came out. protecting, right? I think I've done what I needed to do. It's time for me to see joy now in these next chapters and these next seasons. So not feeling the need to fight or carry the burden to have to fight. So, and guarding my spirit and protecting my spirit as I channel into this new season. 50,
Wow.
here I come.
Great. I mean, I think that another theme I'm getting out of all you guys is some of our trials could be our greatest triumphs, and our struggles. And there's a quote yesterday, and I'm gonna butcher it, but talking about pain turning into our purpose, right? And which I think is a great way to look at things, because we all struggle, we all do, and turning that those lemons, me living with this quote unquote diagnosis of bipolar, and turning that into something that is edifying and uplifting, and not something that's bringing me down. And it's like, I'm bipolar. I live with bipolar. I never say I am, because that's not who I am. Uh, and I see that you guys have done that as well. I am going to bring Liz into this for a minute to share, um, some things that I've been. I haven't been paying attention to the chat and looking at the chat, so maybe Liz, you might have thoughts or ideas of what's being said. Liz?
Overwhelmingly, there really aren't any questions. There's just admiration and accolades for what's being said, and also being able to relate to everything that you've all shared. I think pain into purpose, that is a favorite NAMI line, and because that's why and how we're all here, is because we are sharing our journey. We are sharing what we've learned and our strengths and our weaknesses. Um, our story is our power. And so overwhelmingly, everybody in the chat just reinforces how important everything you guys have shared, and how they're going to take it forward. They're definitely they're going to move forward with what you've shared.
Cool.
So thank you. Thank you for that. Let me see if anybody else is sharing anything now. But yeah, somebody said I'm too busy listening to contribute to a question. And I definitely respect that. So thank you. Thank you all.
Thanks. I know that I keep reading. When I do glance over the chat, people wanted Sir Billy to sing, but I'm not going to do that because we can't pay him enough money. We can't pay. We don't pay him any money. But anyway, but go out there, and again, there'll be in the chat. We get put Sir Billy and Pascal and Lucianne, their emails, how they get you get in contact with them, their information, and all that stuff. So we'll put all that stuff in the chat. One of the themes of NAMI is "You Are Not Alone," right? That's one of the. In fact, the book is. I met the doctor. Forgot his name. Anyway, I sat next to him at a conference who wrote the book, and he talks about all the things that NAMI does, uh, and really, really, it's a really great book. And having, listening to you guys and being part of NAMI, and being part of the feeling that I am not alone, that, that we are all in this, being able to share our struggles and our triumphs and stuff like that. And that goes beyond race and economic status and education, and just being open and honest. And I think that brings things together and makes the world a lot smaller when we kind of share and open up. So I am going to give you guys, everybody, 3 minutes to share whatever you want the audience to leave with, as to whatever you want. I'm not gonna put any parameters on it, and talk to us about whatever you want to say about your experiences, what happened, whatever. So I call it famous last words. So and I'm gonna have Pascal, you start the famous last words.
You didn't give me a chance to think.
Oh, I'm sorry. You know, I thought, see, that's the teacher in me. I'm gonna give you because I like people spontaneous. Who wants to share first? Uh, anybody? Pascal. Oh, you're gonna share first. Go ahead. Whatever you want to talk about. I mean, the experience of today, anything that you want to share. Um, yeah.
You know, I when you invited me into this space, I said, okay, who am I going to be today when we talk about who are we in the different spaces that we enter? What do we share? So, yes, while jumping in and being authentically myself, right, and unapologetically, there are some things that, kind of gauge who we are in the different spaces that we enter, and just being even real and transparent about that. And so it's like, well, how much of my story do I tell? What parts of me is interesting for this audience? Not even knowing and seeing who the audience is, but then gauging it off of who I'm sharing alongside of, right? So it has been a great experience for me. I want to say that in sharing my different parts of me, I do feel liberated. That is part of my wellness, and sharing my story and the different parts of my story, depending on how my spirit allows me, or allows me to share and what to share in the spaces that I enter. So just being grateful about the opportunity, basically, to be in this space and to share amongst folks, and just a reminder of how important it is to share who we are, to share our stories so that we can help others liberate themselves. And no one should be ashamed of whatever their story is. No matter what, you never know who you're touching as you share parts of who you are.
Amen. Amen.
So
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad that our worlds collided a couple of months ago, and I said, and you're talking about vibrations and feelings and cosmic stuff. I said, oh no, I got to get to know her. She's going to be another friend of mine. I got 1,000 friends, but my inner circle. You might be part of the inner circle, possibly. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you. It's
I
an honor to
appreciate it.
be. Thank you.
Uh, um, Sir Billy, uh, I'll choose you. And
Honor to be chosen, brother. I think the
then,
biggest thing I would leave people with, for me, there's a scripture that I live by. It's Revelation 12 and 11. And in the King James, the part that's relevant for this says, and they overcame by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. And so I would encourage each and every person that will see this, just as we've done today, how I've always interpreted that scripture is not to mean that I overcome by the word of my testimony. It's my testimony. I've already endured it.
mm,
But in the power of me sharing the word of my testimony with other people, I give them the ability and the power to overcome theirs.
mm,
And so, to everybody that will see this, I would say that just as we're doing today, as we're sharing, just as whenever you're watching panelists talk and they're sharing pieces of their story, they're giving you tools that you can utilize to overcome and to navigate your own journeys. Understand that you have a testimony too, and it may or may not cross or traverse any of the same places that ours has. Some of the things we're sharing may be very familiar. Some of these things may be alien to you. But your story, your testimony, the things that you've encountered, the challenges you faced, the battles you lost. We always want to talk about the victories. Nobody ever wants to share about the negative things that they face. But even the battles that you lost, those things empower somebody else to say, if they made it through that, so can I. If they were able to find a way, if they lost their mom and had a miscarriage, if they lost their mom and they're celebrating throughout life and then now finally grieving at 47 years old, if they were homeless and eating out of trash cans and they found their way, if they can go through those things that people don't talk about and they found a way to overcome that and to have victory, and not only to do that but to be able to pour back into other people, so can I. Share your testimony, share your story, whether it's in a peer group or it's online, whatever places that you can, because you will give somebody else the ability to overcome by the word of your testimony.
wow, wow. Oof. You guys are preaching. I'm glad we're taping this because I will be replaying this over and over and over again. Thank you, Sir Billy, and we'll talk some more. Um, Two feathers?
Well, John, thank you for having me be a part of this. If I could leave you all with anything, and I popped it into the chat to my fellow panelists before, I have this saying that your mess can become your magic. There might be things that you've been through or are journeying through right now that you may not understand. What I have learned in life is nothing is by accident. Everything that you're being given is purposeful, right? And it's purposeful in the sense that you will be the blueprint for someone else that is just embarking on that journey, right? The idea of sharing it, right, and speaking on it, because you never know who is out there waiting and doesn't know what to do and is waiting to meet someone like you. That's how powerful it is. Your voice, right, energetically can affect a star like light years away, right? So think about that. If it can do that, imagine what sharing your story and using your voice can do for all the people around you and for like humanity as a whole. That's how important you are and everything that you've been through is. So thank you.
Wow, wow. I know that talking about spirituality and religion and belief systems, and one of my feelings is that, we're all searching, we all want to be better. There's always something missing that we're trying to grasp onto. And I think that for me, um, that missing piece is what I call God. And growing up and studying scriptures and studying different religions and faiths and everything, feeling that there's someone, something, whoever, something greater than there has to be something greater than me, right? That is ordering my steps and and it's a good thing, not a bad thing. Ordering myself for the good. And so my faith and God and my experiences all show me that for me, I don't have to uh, prove it to anyone. God has revealed himself to me through things that have happened where I could honestly say that I don't know how I would have gotten through this if it wasn't for some divine intervention. I think that if we all take time to think about things that we say, oh my God, how, oh my God, right? Thank God for God, right? For me. But we all go through things where we just don't know how we're gonna deal with it. We just can't find the answer, and somehow, some way, something happens, and we get through it. We're still here. I think that uh, part of my disease is that when I'm going through a depression, I can't see and I can't understand that there's goodness. And sometimes it's difficult for them. I mean, 1 out of 4 people who live with bipolar commit suicide, kill themselves. And but what keeps me grounded is the whole this too shall pass, number one. And we all have to think about this too, whatever we're going through, this too shall pass, right? That's going to be the name of my company, by the way. But also uh, the fact that I am in communion with other people who are sharing and dealing with stuff. We all deal with SHI Gaga, right? And knowing that because of the fall, and I'm not going to get too much into scripture and all that, we are all searching and looking, and so for me, uh, that thing for me is God. Hopefully, for other people, it's something. It's something. It could be the earth or astrology, whatever it is outside of ourselves that we could turn to and say, I can't do this on my own. I can't. And not, but and the embodiment of God is you guys, as people who I share with, and people who are my friends, and people who support. And I think that I've been fortunate to have that. And hopefully, people that are living with mental health challenges need people to support and to be edifying. And I know I'm speaking to the choir for many people who are listening, because you're caregivers, and you're living with family members and loved ones. And although it might be difficult for you sometimes just to put your life jacket on, but the feeling that as me, as someone who lives with it, who knows that I have my brother, my sister, my friends, my mom, my dad, who passed away, but how they helped me is so important. So we have until noon, but I'm gonna end it here in terms of I feel so filled, the last 2 days have been cathartic for me, as well as, and hopefully for other people who have joined. I'm gonna have Liz talk about a little bit about NAMI for a second, and then we'll wrap it up. And as I said, I'm gonna come back on at 12:30 for those who are going to go to the national. Have also they have speakers, and they have a pre-recorded kind of an hour and a half presentation that's not nearly as good as what we just did. But no, let me stop. No, I'm sure it's great, and I have seen, and it's pretty good stuff. So if you want to come back on for a second, and then wrap it up. But to wrap it up, this is great. We're going to continue to do more stuff. Again, Pascal and Sir Billy and Lucienne will try to put all your stuff into so we can sell your wares, right? And tell where you're going to be, who you're going to do, and stuff like that. So I appreciate you guys. Liz, take it home, Liz. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you again. Yes, and to all panelists, if you want me to share your email or whatever, just please, send it to John or to me. We're all in that email thread, and I will post it.
Yes.
For this afternoon, very quickly, on the homepage of namiq1.org will be links to that, or I will also project it through this Zoom, through this webinar format, this afternoon's national presentation. What enabled us to have this dynamic conversation is priceless, just priceless. And this afternoon, NAMI's video is a presentation. So there are people talking, but this conversation is just so valuable. And again, that's what we do at NAMI. We share our stories, we share our first person experiences, and those really frightening moments. Thankfully, I never felt shame for my son's journey. I only felt anger, and like you, Pascal, the bolder I could be, the better, right? Like scream out and get help. And that's what we do. But we would love it if everybody who is listening to us now joined our forces. We need you as members. We need your voice. We need your voice badly, because I don't know why, but we still live in a world of stigma. I don't understand it, but no, I do. I get it. But we need your voice. We need your help. We need you to become members or participants in all of our groups. And we do have a group that is somebody's looking for, bereavement and Black and Brown groups. And one happens to be headed by somebody who's Haitian. So, we welcome you. We welcome you into our community, into our family. And we need you. We need your voice. So thank you. Thanks for participating.
Thank you, Billy. Putting your email. I think Lucy, if you want to put your email in the chat, and Pascal as well. I know Pascal has a dynamic ebook that I had a chance to listen to, and so again, put your stuff in the chat so we could get in touch and keep in touch. And so now you guys are all NAMI Queens Nassau members. Not really, you have to become a member, but you're all family, Queens Nassau family. And I appreciate you guys, and will continue to be in touch and share. And now I have three new best friends, and I appreciate it. So again, I thank you guys. Again, we're gonna sign off, and again, I'll come back on at about 12:30 if anybody wants to come on, and we have the link in NAMIQN.org, and you can actually listen to NAMI National. So thank you guys. I appreciate it. I'm lifted. I feel like I'm gonna go. Can't swim in the ocean because they said they're not letting anybody in because the waves. But I want to take a dip right now, but I won't. So anyway, I thank you guys, and God bless.